Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our special council meeting for today, Tuesday, Tuesday, March 7th, 2023. I'll call this morning meeting to order at 9:32. And we'll read off the territorial land acknowledgement first. Before our meeting gets underway, I would like to formally recognize the traditional keepers of this land and specifically our neighbors of the Alderville First Nation with a formal territorial acknowledgement. We respectfully acknowledge that the township of Allen-McCulderman is located on the Mississaugan-Ashaninabeg territory and is the traditional territory of the Mississaugan-Ashaninabeg. The township of Allen-McCulderman respectively acknowledges that the Mississaugan Nation are the collective stewards and caretakers of these lands and waters in perpetuity, and that they continue to maintain this responsibility to ensure their health and integrity for generations to come. Move on to item 3, disclosure of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof. Seeing none, that'll be duly noted. Item 4, approval of the agenda as circulated. Be it resolved that the agenda for the special council session of Tuesday, March 7th, 2023 be approved as circulated. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Ainsworth, seconded by Deputy Mayor Stover. Further discussion? All in favor? Motion's carried. 5.1, the council report from Pat Kemp, clerk, dated March 7th, 2023 regarding the strategic plan review. And before we get into any discussion on that, I'm just going to mention that I was around in 2015, I believe, when we first did our strategic plan. That was the first one that we did. And I go through the ones that we have now, and it has changed, but not a lot of it has changed. The preamble, which is the first 6 pages, probably needs to be updated and change the figures and that type of stuff. And then on page 7, we go into the vision statement and the mission statement, and we can certainly discuss that. And and then we get into the strategic plans, which that's what we're going to spend most of the next 2 or 2.5 hours on. But at the end of the day, I think what staff are looking for and what some type of direction on whether we need to have a full 2-day meeting for the next meeting, or we can shorten that down to a 1-day. I don't know the answer to that. I guess we're going to find out over the next couple of hours, but I think staff wants some direction after that to see where we go from there. And of course, it will involve all of our, no matter where we go, it will involve all of our senior staff, because this is a joint project, and any strategic plan has to have input and support from both senior staff and council. And if it's not there on both sides, then it's going to be difficult to achieve. So I just wanted to kick that off, and maybe I'll pass it over to Pat. Would you like us to read that motion first, or do you want to kick it off a little bit and then we'll go from there? Well, why don't you kick it off, and then we'll start talking about it after.
Okay. All right. So good morning, council and gallery. We were asked to do a review of the strategic plan. So just so further to what the mayor had said, we did have a plan that was passed by the previous council in 2019, and it ran until 2022. The plan does need some statistical data updated. I have done some work on some of that. And that data, some of it was taken from 2011, some of it was taken from 2016. So we now have the census report from 2021. So we'll be using that data. Just for council's information, a strategic plan is a roadmap. It's so that you can set your goals, you know where you're going to go, and you don't, excuse this, Councillor Ainsworth, but you don't go off-roading. So it's a basis for council and staff to know the direction that we want to go on. So a strategic plan also has to have its goals that are attainable and measurable. and the SMART method is used. So that means it's specific. The goals are specific, they're measurable, they're achievable, they're relevant, and they're time-based. And the other thing that I'd noticed in your previous, if you didn't do a SWOT analysis, so at some point in time, council may want to do a SWOT analysis, which is your strength, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and your threats. And the other thing that council may want to look at is your increasing and decreasing pressure. So I know from past experience, decreasing pressure may be the lack of grants from the federal or provincial government. So that's something that does impact the municipality. So in your 2019 to 2022 strategic plan, you had 4 objectives, and that was the Parks Master Plan, the PW centralization facility, staffing issues, fiscal sustainability. And then in 2021, the previous council did a review and they added 2 new initiatives. One was to investigate a new administration building, and the other was to ensure safe drinking water for the Grafton communal water system. And the previous council did take a review of the Parks Master Plan. I think this council should take a look at it as well. It is a very in-depth document and it would take more than just this sitting to get through it. And there were a number of recommendations that were in that I think council should take a review of it as well. So then the CEO and myself will be reviewing the remaining 5 objectives that in detail today. And consultation, I know council has always said that they'd like to hear from the public. So council can put it out on Let's Talk. We can do it on the website, on social media. You could hold an information session. Council needs to decide how you'd like to get public input. And typically a municipality allows 30 days for public input to be received. And so the one thing that has been mentioned in the previous is about grant opportunities. And just so that you know, staff are always looking at grant opportunities. The CAO sends out a blast every Monday morning, letting us know what grant opportunities are available, and then staff can review them and bring those grant opportunities forward to council for review. So with that, we'll get into the strategic plan, and I'm going to try to pull the can't work, but I'm gonna put it up on the screen, but I guess. For that last.
Through your worship, if council wishes, yeah, you can receive that as well. I would just make sure that don't take any action without going through staff for, but if you want to see the opportunities that are out there, sure, yeah, I have no problem with that. Yep. Yep.
I hear this all the time, but
Okay.
What money value we're talking about and what that we would be able to.
Sure. I have no problem sending all of council the information I get. Now there's some more sets of eyes on opportunities doesn't hurt. So I would just ask again, just make sure, we review it and then get back to me, go through me, and we'll go forward to whatever department you think that the funding opportunities are there for. So certainly. Sure. Yeah, I can do that.
We could, and then it's on the books.
That we get the Monday morning blast from your CAO outlining the funding opportunities that are coming down.
If I get a seconder for that. Councilor Booth, all in favor? Carry. You ready, Pat?
I am.
Okay.
So now we're just going to review the strategic plan, the 2019 to 2022. So I'm sure council is aware of this, but the township of Alwick and the township of Haldeman officially amalgamated on January 1st, 2001. And the report that was done, I'm looking on page 2 if council's following along, but the report that was done had an expectation that the population growth would grow to 7,504 by the year 2034. We've already hit 7,455 according to the census from 2021. So it looks like we're going in leaps and bounds faster than what they anticipated. So that increase actually is an 8.8% increase in our population. And as part of the document, the primary industries are listed as agricultural and then tourism, which includes resorts, campgrounds, bed and breakfasts, establishments. So again, on the first page, it talks about the population of 6617, and that they have listed here as the 2011 census, but the 2021 is 7455. So that amount will be changed. So on the next page, then it has the demographics. And so I did a quick review of the 2016, and I just took the total amount. So for instance, in 2016, there was 1,030 children from 0 to 14. And in 2021, that was 1,010. So that's a decrease of 20. In the 15 to 19 age bracket was 405. It's now up to 415. So that's plus 10. In 20 to 29-year-olds, it was 630. It's now up to 710, which is an increase of 80. 30 to 39-year-olds, it was 605. It's an increase to 705, which is an increase of 100. 40 to 49-year-olds, it was 900. It's now 940. So that's an increase of 40. 50 to 59-year-olds, it was 1290. It's now 1275. So that's a decrease of 15. But the 60 to 69-year-olds was 1,120. It's now 1,290, which is an increase of 170. And the 70 to 79-year-olds was 630. It's now 800, which is also an increase of 170. So those two age brackets seem to be where our population has grown. 80 to 84-year-olds, 150. It's now 175, which is an increase of 25. And 85 plus is 95 in 2016. In 2021 was 135. So it's an increase of 400. So we have 600 additional population since 2016 to 2021. So that information will be updated in the report as well.
What was the second one that was had dropped? And it just dropped a little, I think.
Yeah, so the 50 to 59-year-olds was down by 15.
50 to 59 down by 15, so less, 1%. And the 0 to 14s were down by 0. All the rest of them are up.
Yes.
Good.
And that information is important to council, because when you're thinking about the programs that you want to see, it's important to know what your demographics are so that you know the age brackets that are in the area. And if you had all the activities, say for children, and you have more seniors, then that's not going to work.
Your copy?
When I was still working at the library, I did a branch profiles, and I was able to break out the information by well, I did it by branch of the library, right? So there are actually 11 dissemination areas, which are set out by Stats Canada. So they're broken down into 11 pieces. So we can break it down quite granular. And then we can also use, because all the information's in a CSV, we can cross-reference in any way that we want to pick out very specific information about the economic levels and what's happening on those fronts as well as age. And yeah, so there is so much information in the Stats Canada, and we're able to break it down into 11 sections within our municipality.
And thank you for sharing that with us.
Yes, well, for reference of the public, I did update So I had only picked out a handful of things for that branch survey, mainly things that were going to impact either programming or seeking funding on anything. But there's so much more there in the Stats Canada, and I know for just one of those random things that popped up just as I'm scrolling and you see things in the back of your mind. But we don't have a lot of people who are living in the poverty level, what's designated, but the ones that are almost all single seniors. So, you know, it is, we can get to that level of how granular we are. And sometimes weird things pop out at me too, like the number of renters does not anywhere align with the number of rental units. So, but I think that might be that boarders have nowhere to put in that they're a boarder. So I think renters is capturing boarders, but that might, there's a lot of information there.
There certainly is, and I was looking at it from the county perspective too. And there's all different types of information, but one thing I found really interesting. The highest population are living in one unit facilities. And that includes people by themselves living in their home, in an apartment, whatever, but the highest number is one person living in one building. That's the best.
Like a home, you mean?
A home, could be
Yeah.
a home, could be an
Apartment.
apartment, could be whatever, but I think it was like 35%,
Wow.
which is surprising. And that was pretty well across the province. Sorry, Pat, go ahead.
Okay, no.
Well, it's good information, I guess. Yep.
Okay, so, the report then goes on to economic and development trends, so. Sorry. It looked at economic diversification and, we don't have it as a strategic, goal on our plan. I don't know if that's something that council may want to consider, but, it was talked about in the previous plan. And then, just, it goes into the municipal governance services, which council understands that your term is for 4 years. And then it went and looked at the township services that are provided. So, planning and development. So there's land use planning, building, property standards, animal control, environmental services, municipal drinking water treatment and distribution. And that's only in Grafton. Transportation, so roads, bridges and culverts. Recreation and culture, so parks, community centers, and we have 5 buildings. Libraries, we have 3 branches. Boat launches, areas on Lake Ontario and Rice Lake. The Newawton Sanctuary, Sullivan Memorial Park and Arena. Maintenance of municipal owned buildings and properties and cemeteries. And then our protection services, which is our fire protection and prevention. Medical first response, emergency management, 911 system, police services, and that's the OPP with a contract, and municipal bylaw enforcement. And then general government is council, administration, finance, human resources, information technology, and legal.
Well, one thing we might want to update is the community centers. I believe there's only 4 buildings now rather than 5.
Okay.
Good. Go ahead.
Through you.
Lots of other stuff.
Yeah, through you, your worship. Also, we probably should make a note that since we identify how many community centers and libraries, we should identify how many fire stations. In my opinion, we should have that identified.
And probably roofs as well. I don't think there's any other services that we offer, really. Well, you probably figured them out, but I think those are the biggest, probably the biggest, certainly the biggest ones. Mary Catherine?
I take Clerk Kemp's. Who is this lady beside me? Anyway, I take her point that we might want to be looking at economic because we're not capturing any of our agriculture or tourism in particular, but home businesses and the STRs. These are things that council spends a lot of time on, and I think it should be reflected there. And we don't, in environmental services, I'm wondering, now I'm probably jumping ahead, but we may want to be looking at more in there as we are dealing with climate change and major storms and those types of things, water management and these big storms, tree management.
Very good. Okay, so then we'll move on. So then in the 2019 strategic plan, it looked at like the current situation, what the mission and the goals were, and what the future state was. And it looked at this strategic plan consisting of 5 elements. So the first part was the vision statement, and the mayor had mentioned that as well. And our vision statement is unified from lake to lake. Our community is rooted in rural traditions and lifestyles. We enjoy fulfilling life here in all 4 seasons. We learn from nature, celebrate diversity, and embrace progress as an accessible, inclusive community. So I don't know if council want to review the vision statement. Is it still current for what this council is thinking it should be, or is there any changes that you want to see in it?
Comments? Mary Catherine?
I would prefer to come back to it after.
I was gonna say. Okay. And then the next item was the mission statement. And the mission statement is Alla Calderman is committed to providing a comprehensive range of efficient and effective municipal services through collaboration, leadership, resource management, and fiscal accountability. So again, I don't know if council wants to wait and review that after you go through various goals, or.
I would think so.
Okay. And then as part of the strategic plan, then it's the goals. So these are individual actions that together make up the mission. They identify where the organization needs to focus. Goals are long-term, usually over a lifetime of strategic plan. They must be realistic and measurable. And then the strategic priorities are short-term, specific, measurable actions and initiatives designed to contribute to the achievement of established goals. They are fulfilled through creation, change, continuation, or elimination of programs or initiatives. In the performance measurements, the steps for the strategic priority will lead to achievement, indicating how you will know if you're making progress or when you have achieved a strategic priority objective. And the strategic plan will be reviewed annually to take into account changing priorities of council. The strategic actions will be monitored using a set of comprehensive evaluation criteria. And again, it's been my experience on an annual basis. You take a look at the goals that were established by council and what the status of it is. Some of them will be already achieved. Some of them may be in progress. Some of them may not be attainable because of changes that happen that you have no control over. So it's good for council to review it and see what is achievable and where you are, and maybe changing your goals. Maybe there's something else that comes up that takes priority that you need to look at. Okay, and so I guess right now then, if you want, we can go into the priorities. And the first one then is the master plan. So I don't know if council wants to go through what is here and then do an in-depth review of the master plan for parks, or if you want to wait and do it at a later time, then just give me direction of what you'd like.
We have a quick one anyways, where we are now.
I'm sorry, pardon?
I think we should have a quick explanation of where we are now and whether we can, just so we know.
Okay,
And I'm having a bit of difficulty, Pat. When I split my screen, I don't seem to be able to turn it.
there's a button at the top that looks like a round.
Yeah, but normally I could do that like all the time, but when I'm Once you build a room, another build a scheme. I took my brother to the mountain. There. Thank you, Troy.
Make a note that happened.
Did a great job. Okay. Thank you.
All right, so the first one then is the decision on the future of number and scope of libraries and community centers. So, oh, sorry. I just could say that has not been done yet. So I don't know. Sorry.
Go ahead, Mayor Catherine.
Two things on that, Mayor Lovell. The first being, we can't really make any decisions on the future and scope of the libraries beyond saying we're going to provide space if they wish to use it, but it's the library board that decides whether there's 3 branches, 2 branches, 1 branch, that's their decision. So that one, but we do have coming before us this afternoon, the mandate for the recreation, culture and community development. And it does include references to the master plan, and that will be the guiding document. So I think it is important we make a note of that. And I just realized I have a third there.
Pardon me?
I just realized I have a third thing.
Okay.
The third is that during budget, we discussed the repurposing or the investigation of what to do about Fenella. And so I think that needs to be added to where we are now.
Do you think it's a good idea to go through, well, the Parks and Rec is fine because there's really no change as it had for over the last 4 years, because I do like your March where you brought us up to date on everything. And is it brought up to date for the Parks Master Plan as well or not? You understand what I'm asking?
Status?
Huh?
Are you talking about the status?
Yes, the status, because the March on the final
Column?
objectives that you list, you show where we are right now for all of them, but I'm not sure if the Parks Master Plan is part of that.
So because council had a separate meeting, there are some items that need to be updated and in that document that we have not done yet.
Okay.
But I was assuming we would go through that at a separate meeting, but just do an
For Parks and Rec?
yeah, and just go over an overview now to see what was in the initial plan.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so then the next one is the decision on the future of the arena, renovate, build, new or with admin. So again, if the Parks, Recreation, Culture and Development Committee are going to be looking at that, that might be something that council wants to wait to hear back from that committee before making a decision.
Yep.
And oh,
And
sorry.
they'll probably, Parks and Rec would be probably happy to hear some public input on that too.
Councillor Ainsworth might want to speak to this. We hadn't addressed yet in any way the arena there, and my thinking is that it's going to end up being a subcommittee or an ad hoc committee that is. I guess that would be the umbrella that it's under, but it won't be part of the mandate of that committee to have that level of discussion.
Yeah, through Mayor Logan. Also, we talked about putting a 10-year plan together for that arena before we did anything. So we knew where we were gonna go with that or not, kind of thing. So that could probably come up in this strategic plan. Right.
Okay, and then the next one is decision on waterfront amenities and facilities. So the CAO may want to talk about this, but on your road tour, we did take a viewing of all the boat launches. And there are some that are not necessarily able to accommodate like trailers and trucks and things like that. It's more passive recreational, like canoeing and kayaking and that sort of thing, but I don't know if the CAO wants to.
Yeah, through you, Worship. Yes, Pat is correct. We do have some boat launches on the shores of Rice Lake that need to be really looked at. You know, they accommodated the boaters back in the day when they had, little small rowboats type thing. But now we have, large trucks, large trailers, large boats, and then they have to park. We just can't accommodate it, what the needs are in 2023. So I think the launches need to be really looked at, and what their use is for. And then also down at Wicklow boat launch, it was discussed, do we start having launch fees, stuff like that? And a snack shack or whatever down there to try and generate some revenue with the summer student operating it. So those are some of the things that were discussed in past council that we need to review, and that's on our agenda this year to really have a good study done of the launch. So in 2024, maybe we can implement an annual fee for launches, but they're just ideas, but we've been talking about them for a bit, and we need to take action on which direction we're going. Do we want to do this? And so hopefully we can decide where we want to be with our boat launches, because they are huge in this township. But they do create a lot of complaints, problems when it comes to the parking of the vehicle and trailer and stuff. And some of our launches just can't handle some, like I said, some of the size of structures or boats going in the water. So, but it's a big topic and it needs to be looked at.
And just to make council aware, we did apply for some funding last year for all of the boat launches. Unfortunately, we were not approved for it, but so there is some background information that we have on some of the costs to bring them up to date, and to improve the wharfs so people can safely get in and out of the boats, and it's too bad that we didn't get the funding, but
My thoughts and opinions on it, it's hard for us to provide, I don't know, 3 or 4 or 5 boat launches on Rice Lake. And they should be, in my opinion, we should have a good one and some smaller ones that people want to put in their fishing boat and that type of stuff, but it's impossible. And I don't think we should be expected to provide any money, because you got Hamilton Township, who has probably 2/3 of at least half, but probably almost 2/3 of the circuit or the area. And then you have Tonby, South Monaghan, and I'm not sure if Hastings in there or not, but those are all pretty big locations, and people with big boats probably have them. And it's fine for us to have that, in my opinion, that one big one that people can put their boats out to and take it to the college once a year or whatever. But we can't afford to offer any more than one, or in my opinion, one for that kind of service.
At the ad hoc committee for the Parks Review Plan, there was quite a bit of discussion at that time to say we only had 2 boat launches and the others were public access points. And to distinguish that, and so then anyone who's looking it up or researching it is not expecting that to be a boat launch.
Which are the 2?
The one at Sandy Bay and the one at Wicklow.
That's right. You're talking those 2. Okay, I thought you meant 2 on Rice Lake. Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Mike.
To you, Mayor Lovell. So, I look at these boat launches as a big part of our tourism here for the municipality. And I agree we should designate them for certain watercraft. And I would say even our Lake Ontario shoreline there that we have could be a great beach. Yes, we'd have to police it, but it would be a great area to clean up and make a beautiful beach there, along with that boat launch. So I think it's critical to our tourism with these boat launches, and with the shores of Rice Lake and the shores of Lake Ontario here, that we probably need to upgrade them and make them accessible and start using them to our advantage.
Something like, right, and you agreed with Troy that we should be charging for one on.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Because there isn't too much other offered between, I don't know, anything like that between Coles and Drayton.
Through your worship, I was, a sea doer, so I've been to all the launches and majority of the launches are, you have to pay. So we have a lot of people coming from out of town. Because it's a free launch and it's one of the best launches along the shores of Lake Ontario. So, you know, I'm not saying we need to do it, but it's something that we need to investigate and really take a long, hard look at. You know, as soon as we start it, we have to stay on top of it. And how do we do it? You know, you can't have somebody down there all the time, you know, so whether it's you know, a sticker on the trailer that identifies that you're a seasonal pass. But again, so they were implementing you know, a fee and, you know, how are we going to monitor it? We have to stay on top of it. So, you know, it's definitely worth a long discussion before you definitely commit to it, but it should be discussed at the future of especially Wicklow.
Go ahead, Mike.
Another good point, Councillor O'Neill and I were talking about was making a map and putting putting on the map where everything is and defining what they are, that we could throw on our social media, put out front here in our little kiosk out there. And so this would all be good things that we could do to help the tourism here in the township. We have so much in the township. This is just one thing, but it's very important.
And do we have that map available?
We do have a map that identifies all the launches and parks within the township, but if we do make obviously any kind of changes, the map would have to be changed or identify a little bit better what our services or what each launch or park provides, what kind of, you know, amenities are at each. So
My opinion, it's just my opinion of it is we do have that map. But it's so hard to look at. There's so much there that you really need to be able to look at boat launches and look at churches and look at parks and all of that different type of thing on a separate one, but then show the whole thing.
That was my point, that it needed to be a bit more user friendly than the current map we have.
Okay, go ahead, Pat.
And then the last one, the determination of programs at these facilities. So again, what services are you going to offer at those facilities? And again, I'm sure Parks and Rec are looking at that through their mandate, so. The other thing I wanted to go back to the boat launches is when we did apply for the grant, we did ask for support from Alderville First Nation. And they were in support because they have a number of people that are using their boat launches that shouldn't be. And so they were quite happy that the township was looking at getting some launches that we could advertise and maybe would help alleviate some of the traffic that they see on their boat launches.
There's our public boat launches.
I don't believe so. I think it's for their.
I think there's space issues of parking as well there for them. Like just, they have the space issues there as well.
They have space, okay. Well, really, I don't know where to speak that well, but I know that Bewdley has some parking space, but it's almost full too, isn't it?
they just created a huge parking lot a few years ago, so I think they have a lot of parking now. There is a little bit of a walk to it. After you launch, you have to drive a bit to park, but I think they created a very large parking lot in Bewdley, so.
And Point Landing has some.
Yep. Yeah, there's.
Hastings.
Yep.
But then they have all of the, pardon me, not all, but they have a lot of amenities for those people on boats too, that you save on when you spend money. So. Go ahead, Pat.
Mayor, sorry.
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, through you, Mayor Logo. So I just wanted to comment on this, you know, the programs at these facilities. It's hard to comment on them because I don't think we're proactive enough I don't think we do enough to show what we have. And, you know, out to the rest of the communities and the rest of the world kind of thing for tourists to come in here. And, so this part here is, something that I'd like to see is have a whole new program of us being proactive, selling ourselves kind of to the world of what we have here in Coleman Township that they can come and enjoy. And these numbers on all these facilities would probably, you know, take right off.
It really jumped out at me at the census information where it's showing 33% of the people living in the township of Alma-Calderman moved here in the 2016 to 2021 5-year window. So we need to let our own residents know about what is here because they're new.
It's not 33% new people.
Correct.
Oh, I
They
guess that's
moved
not-
here. They moved
Yeah,
here.
within 5 years.
Yeah.
That's
A lot.
good, but
Yeah,
it's not
absolutely.
really surprising. because
Yeah.
people move Much.
And there's gonna be more with the growth that's gonna happen down here. Oh, through your Mayor Logal, it will be more with the growth that is expected in this area. In the hamlet. And through you, Mayor Logal, I just had, I was talking to some ladies yesterday and with the programs at the facilities. And a lot of them are running on grants right now. So I'm just not sure how we work at the costing of some of these programs. Because if they're running off a grant, some of these programs are free. So when the grants are dried up, or the funding is dried up for them, are they going to be coming back and paying? And that's going to be a $1 million question.
So are we applying for those grants and getting grants to host some of those things?
Through your worship, yes, our program coordinator does apply to grants when she sees them, and she will. And she has been successful in many of them, and she will continue to do so.
Here, Catherine?
Specifically, the library and the program coordinator were successful in getting some senior programming grants, and that is what Deputy Mayor Stover is referring to, because they did have some pretty good attendance, but that is coming to an end shortly. So whether these Zumba or any of the other programs are going to continue and how the funding should look for participation in programs.
That's a good point.
Mhm.
Go ahead, Pat.
Okay, so is there any other questions on the Parks Master Plan before we move forward?
Go ahead.
Okay. Okay, so the next one is our Public Works centralized facility. And as council know, the building has been built. We will be holding the grand opening in May or June. It did address some of the health and safety concerns that we had. And so this one is 90% complete. We still have a few things, but overall, it's pretty well done. And it was Brian will be bringing back a report at some point in time with the total cost for the whole project for our council's review. So
Good.
if there's any specific questions on it, there are, I'm sure the CAO could answer. Okay, are we ready to move forward?
Oh, I'm sorry, Mike.
No, through you, Your Honor. So I was glad to see the health and safety improvements things on here, because it's something that we talked about a few times just throughout the municipality with all our staff and the equipment stuff that we have. And this is another one where I'd like to see more meat to it. You know, is everybody getting signed off on first aid stuff? And are they getting signed off on policies and procedures and stuff like that that we have to make sure that we're protecting ourselves when it comes to issues? So this one here is another one that really stands out to me. Especially with the public works, because of all the equipment they use and all the hand equipment they use and the way things are operated there. So that's probably our biggest, I think would be our biggest concern.
Go ahead.
Through your worship. Yes, I agree with you. Safety is number one priority. I will say that all our public works staff are trained through ground force training. That's all smaller equipment, grade right up to the graders and stuff. Internally, our HR coordinator, she is distributing all health and safety stuff to all staff right now. So that's being done. So whereas, staff have a certain amount of time to get through like a course and they get certification after. So we are looking at that. We're doing that right now. And I will say with the Public Works new facility, Ministry of Labor has been in there a couple times with their recommendations. And so Brian is working really closely with them just to make sure the simple things, not simple, but like the yellow lines on the floor and stuff like that. So Brian does basically have a to-do list for Ministry of Labor. He's working closely with them and they're happy with what is happening. And yeah, so we're moving in the right direction.
Yeah, they're and that's great. And but the other part of it too is like even for like anybody in charge of employees, all those the programs that they have to get signed off on, due diligence, Bill C-45, God, I could go on, but anyways, all those ones too. And I think it's important that, I think we talked about it before, to maybe having a report come back to where everybody is on all their sign offs. Just so we can keep that on the radar list.
Through you. Yes, I agree. And I will say that when I talked about those courses that staff are taking, senior managers have their own specific courses that we've been doing for the last number of years. So every senior manager has the leadership courses, the management courses, all about legislation and stuff. So we have those, and then there's different courses for staff, just staff, and then different courses for summer students. So we are doing it. It's all done through HR downloads and the county.
Okay.
I think point brings up a good point. Saying that here's the programs we're supposed to do, here's what we've done, and here's what we have to do. But I expect, and I don't know, but I expect we're pretty good shape. And I also look at the number of lost time accidents and incidents and that type of stuff. I could be wrong, but I'm not aware of us having too many issues with people getting hurt. And that's good. That tells me two things: that they are being trained properly and that they're working safe. So, but I agree, it would be nice to know that they have something confirmed that they're going to get that. And we got the person on staff now that can do that. And it's a good idea.
Yeah, I can have that report come to council.
Okay, great. But I will say, like, because we have a report from Public Works that they put on their near misses. So as much as you think near misses, most people just go down, but the near misses are so important, because that near miss should be fixed so it's not an accident tomorrow. So I was nice to see that on the Public Works report, because it's very important part of it.
To your Mayor Local, I'm just wondering about the status, committee appointed, need next meeting date and new updated report. I just wonder about that. That's the first line of the central Public Works Centralized Facility, the top column.
Through you, your worship. Yes, when I started this in 2015, 2016, I had a committee that met and we discussed the public works facility. Not sure where Brian is, if that committee is still going forward. I don't think it really is. Unfortunately, we had some committee members that have passed. So I can ask Brian to get an update on that committee for sure.
Well, I just see it,
Yep.
the status of it where it seems to be live, so.
Yep, I'll find out.
And the other thing I wanted to mention is, our HRR individual has set up first aid training for all of the staff. So that'll be happening, I believe it starts in April, so.
Your worship.
Yep.
Through you, your worship, just to add to that again, it's like, when we're talking about committees, do we have a health and safety committee? And is it per department or is it for the whole township?
We have, through your worship, we have health and safety reps that do our monthly inspections and stuff. And Ministry of Labor was just in here a couple months ago and they reviewed everything. And we did have a couple things that were outstanding, so they have been since corrected and then sent on to Ministry of Labor. So we do have health and safety reps that monitor all our facilities.
Could we have that added to our reports?
Through your mayor logo to Mr. CAO, when you say you have health and safety reps, are they, is there a health and safety committee? Or
We-
are you handling all the information?
We don't have a health and safety committee. I know Pat will answer this, but we do have a rep that does all our inspections and documented and placed on file for, but we don't have, go ahead, Pat.
So under the Health and Safety Act,
Yeah.
you don't have to have a health and safety committee if you have less than 20 employees at a workplace. So we only have 10 here. I'm not sure how many are at Public Works, but it's less than
Less than
20. So that's why we don't have an actual health and safety committee.
But I am implementing that our HR and the health and safety go to our department head meetings. So we're all updated on everything as well. So, but if you want something brought to council, we can make that happen as well.
Yeah, I would like to see a report just for all of us. I mean, it's a protection for the municipality. If we have these things all in place and everybody signed off on all their documents. I know the number 20 when it comes to having the committees, but I wonder if we should be proactive and actually have a committee, because at least in you know, I don't want to discriminate against any department, but at least the Public Works Department, because of all that equipment. If they had some more eyes on everything that were going on, then I think we'd probably be better prepared for things.
Probably, you know, I kind of, it probably wouldn't be a bad idea if, do they do a monthly inspection?
Yes.
If, and I don't know what the quantity, every 2 months, every 3 months, but the person here goes out to Centerton and accompanies the person who's doing it there. And then they come back here, the person out in Centerton come back here, just to get different eyes on it, especially if they have some of that training.
And the other part too is like, and if we have, great, is a reporting system. So even a near miss should be reported on a piece of paper, handed into the health and safety rep, which will come to Brian and then to Troy. And then it's all documented instead of just word of mouth, because when we need it, we need a paper trail.
I'm listening to all of this and finding it very informative, but as I'm listening, I'm thinking about the number of employees we have who are moving to every corner of our municipality, whether that's the grass cutters in the summer, you know, the cleaner who's moving from building to building all through. So because so many of the employees are in different locations at different times, I think it makes sense to see us as one group rather than separate distinct
Yeah.
pieces.
And the other part of that would also be our students. They should not touch nothing until they're all signed off and everything.
Yeah, and that is, I will vouch for that. They are all trained on everything
good.
before they operate anything or drive anything.
As I don't want to belabor the discussion any longer, but through you, Mayor Local, to Mr. CAO, just wondering, I don't know who your reps are. You said you have health and safety reps. So if I'm an employee here and I have an issue, what do I do? Do I go to the rep or do I go to my manager, or how does that work?
It would be the health and safety rep. You go
And
there. But
they-
I can provide all that detailed information of all that to council, but yeah, you'd be the health and safety. If there's a safety issue, you go to the health and safety rep.
And they all know who it is.
That's right.
Okay, good, perfect.
Not that I like correcting things, but by law, you're supposed to go to your supervisor first.
Fine, okay.
And then if the supervisor doesn't do anything about it, then they go to the health and safety rep.
Well, it's a good thing that we're talking.
Well, because the supervisor's in charge of the employees, they're in charge of the area. And you should give them first opportunity to fix the issue.
I agree, but they should work together.
Yeah, no,
Yes.
absolutely.
Because the supervisor won't know, probably doesn't have the training experience. First, actually, John. Anyway, it's a new one.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Chris, or Greg.
Chris,
Go back in age.
through you, your worship, just to Troy, just to question Troy, probably you know the answer. The students then, are they allowed to drive town vehicles or do we do some kind of? And then when it comes to full-time staff too, I'm just thinking, I recall we used to check their licenses. They do that randomly, right? They check all the staff's licenses to make sure nobody's license has been suspended or anything like that. Are we?
Yes, through your worship. A couple things. Yes, we're able to check licenses, background checks multiple times, as many times as we want throughout the year. We do it quite often. I'll put in a special request every now and then and Diane is the lead on that. So we do that quite often. We do it for everybody, whoever operates a township vehicle. Back to the summer students, not necessarily the summer students will drive the truck and trailer. But they are trained on the truck and trailer. If need be, they do need to drive it. Usually it's the position that's a little more than a summer student that operates it, but everyone is trained. We have an individual that is has the authority of MTO to give license and stuff. And so he comes out, does all the training for all staff who operate vehicles. So we basically do it through MTO.
Okay, good. Thank you. And I guess, yeah, the big one would be the fire department because you have a lot of people. If they're driving a truck, you want to make sure that nobody's had their license suspended or
That's right.
anything.
Yeah, so we do it quite often, probably more than most, but again, it's a service that we pay for that is unlimited. So we do it quite often, and it's just goes between the administrator, Diane, and myself.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Just way off the subject, but kind of interesting. I was signing checks there the other day. And normally we have to pay everybody's vulnerability police checks. Never used to figure it out, I just read off, but I never looked at how we have to pay it. It's normally 41,000. So I see this one for $141. So went looking through the papers and it was for a fingerprint check, which kind of scares me a little bit. You probably know the answers, but anyways, the reason that's done is because that was a fairly common name. So rather than know exactly who it was, because then it was a common name, they do a police check, or pardon me, a finger check as well. So just so you know.
The other thing too is if it's if they're working with vulnerable people, so if they're working with children or seniors, they require the additional check with the fingerprints as well.
Is that right? Go ahead.
Okay, moving on. Okay, the next one is staffing levels and so the staffing levels has been reviewed. Also succession planning. I don't believe we brought that report forward to this council, but we have brought it forward to the previous council. At least 2 times in the time that I've been with the township. And then recruitment and retention, I know that we offer our employees courses in the job that they would like to seek in order for them to be trained so that when someone does retire, that individual is ready to take on that role. So I don't know if the CAO wants to go into further detail on that, but
Through your worship. Yeah, succession planning, staffing levels is huge and it's going to be really huge for this township within the next 5 years. So I have brought it to council. I'll bring it to this council as well. After all my performance appraisals and stuff, there was a couple changes. Just of interest of where some staff want to go, but it's something that we need to sit down and discuss and prepare for the future because like I said, it's going to be a different workplace in the next 5 years with the retirees that are coming up. Yeah, it's I'll do a report, bring it, and it's going to be a good discussion as well. So retention strategy for the workplace. Some of the things that we may want to look at, and it's being done right now in neighboring municipalities, is condensed work week for staff. Now, don't be too alarmed on that. The work hours of municipal office would be more, so it'd be like 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. But the staff work week, staff days would be 10-hour days or 4 days a week. So there's different options. I'm not saying we're going to do that. I may do a report, come to council, and we'll talk about it. But if you open up the news, it's in the news right now of municipalities doing it and the rewards of it. Some are just doing it on a trial run, but it's discussed quite a bit at the CAO level that I go to. But again, this is the first I've ever mentioned it. So don't be too alarmed on it. I don't know if it would fit in with us because of the size of us, not sure, but yeah, so retention strategy, COVID has changed an awful lot to employments for staffing where people can work from home now. And that's why I think you'll see our population even get bigger because now someone can work here or live here and maybe work for, a larger city, in Toronto or whatever, because you can work from home. So people are will choose to live in a cheaper location but work in a higher salary occupation elsewhere. So it's huge. I think it's really going to affect A&H over, like I said, the next 5 years. It's going to be a different workplace. So I will draft a report and bring it to council to further the discussion and make sure, we're all on the same page as far as the succession plan.
Through you, your worship. So I'm not sure if it's come to this council. Have we seen the org chart yet for this council or no?
Yes, I did provide the organizational chart, but I can provide it again.
Just if you're bringing that report, just so
Yep.
that we can all see exactly who reports to who
Yep,
and how
certainly.
many bodies and stuff. I've seen it so many times, I can't remember whether
Yeah,
it's been.
no,
this
I
council or
did
the
provide
last
this council with it, but I can definitely do it again. And like I said, it should be a really lengthy, good discussion. So, but I
Okay.
can do that.
one. Thank you.
I was just wondering if we could get some of the background information. So the previous information that was provided on the succession plan and on this organizational review study that was done, please.
Sure.
I think just a quick comment. I think you'll find that every 5 years, there's always going to be changes.
Yep.
And it's good to be planning on that type of stuff because the person sitting there where you are 5 years from now is going to say, coming up in 5 years, we're going to have a lot of
Yep.
people moving around. But
No, you're right.
So, Mike.
Through you, Mayor Lobo. So with the staffing levels, this would be another good opportunity to bring in the time studies. Then we know, you know, how many hours everybody's putting in to their job in the day. And it'll tell us whether, you know, we have too many staff or we need staff if we get it done properly. And this also is a great, the succession plan is definitely important to us because, you know, like the CAO says, people are going to be moving on and we don't want to get caught wondering who's going to fill those spots. So this is a great idea and it's very important for us as a township and moving forward with keeping things in order. So it's another great conversation for this part.
And I'll just throw out an example, and it's usually not the positions that, you know, are really notable or whatever at the forefront, but cemetery management, you know what, who, you know, that's my concern right now. Who are we going to, you know, replace the person that's doing it? Because that person is near, you know, retirement. And so I have to come up with a plan to job shadow. Okay, well, job shadowing, so then they're gonna take it away from the daily duties to job shadow a little bit. So it's gonna be a really good discussion. I have lots of ideas, yeah, and concerns. So I will do that.
Go ahead.
Okay, is there anything else then on the staffing levels that? Any questions? The next one is fiscal sustainability. And we've mentioned it to council before, but we do have an asset management plan that was approved in June of 2022. And the asset management plan is a living document. So every time we upgrade a road, we upgrade a piece of equipment, we do work on a building, that all that information gets entered into the asset management plan. And then it takes away from what the cost we needed to fix it to what it will be in the future, but then it also brings forward any needs that we have for our buildings. So we do have an individual that is working on the asset management plan, inputting data, and that individual will be presenting a report to council at a future meeting so that you are aware of what's involved in the asset management plan and all the assets that we do have. I don't know if the CEO wants to.
Yeah, through your worship. Yeah, as the clerk mentioned, we do have a coordinator that manages the asset management plan. She is taking, she's staying current, taking courses, lots of meetings on asset management. So it is huge. We're on top of it. I will say it, I believe, according to her, that we're ahead of the game than other municipalities, so which is good. We have a great software program. She will come to council and really show you what we are doing. And I think you'll really see the benefits when we get into, you know, even the 2024 budget, you know, because we'll be talking about asset management all the time when it comes to budget. So, yeah.
Two things. I agree that we're getting ahead on this, and I'm very proud of what we did with fire and what Chief Dawson had come to us. So we are getting ahead on the asset management. It's definitely going to be huge for our whole term. On the second one about the grants, which is another area we've really seen improving, is there specific time allocated for staff to work on grants?
Oh, boy. That's a tough one because there's
His question.
yeah,
earlier.
there's a lot of it's so time consuming to do grants. And I think our person sitting at the end there, Pat, she does a lot of it. We try and get the clerk all the information. We try and keep the grants going through one person to be consistent. So get the clerk all the information, all the pricing, and then the clerk will input it in. We have one person that is the main contact. So, but back to your question, it's it's tough. It's time management. Takes a lot of time to do one grant. I do know some neighboring municipalities, they do have staff that are just designated to be grant writers, and it saves them the money they save, basically pays their rate, their wage. But, you know, again, we're small. We're making do, but I do know that some staff do get behind on their normal duties when we're attending to grants. Because, you know, every week I send them out and, you know, you'll see it, you know, because now you're on the list. There's a lot of grants out there that even take the time just to read to see if we qualify. And it's time consuming, but yeah, it's really down to staff time management to get it done. Everyone knows the importance of it, so we do our best.
I don't know, because you've got that balance between volunteers and staff and who's allowed to do what, but is there room for volunteers to help with that process or not?
To do some investigating and there may be aspects of a grant that we could utilize some volunteers for sure. So,
Okay, something to keep in mind.
yeah, no, that's good.
I think most of them come in from the province,
We do have some feds as well. Yeah.
but I guess my point is there's 444 municipalities that are all fighting
Yeah.
for that one, and well, not that one, but so then probably, I don't know what the percentage is, 1 in 20 get one, or 1 in 30, I don't know. So you really got to focus on what you can get, what you can't see, I think.
And that's why this is so important. So we're ground ready. So because again, they don't give a great deal of time, you know, for the deadline for these grants. So then we get back. So we have our asset management plan, which is great that we utilize in our grants. And then this is extremely important. So when we have this finalized, we can get ready. So when the grant comes, boom, we're not bringing it to council. Hey, do you want to do this? No, it's already on strategic plan. Let's get it done. So that's why this document is so important.
And you bring up asset management, you bring up asset management, and you know, I think it's cost money. It does cost money, but there's a chance to get some money back.
Yep.
And we all have to start thinking of, instead of the truck lasting 20 years, that truck lasts 25 years. And I'm not picking on anything, but that's the mentality you got ahead. And because that's why the province is doing it. It's not doing because they want to give us more money to do that. It's because they want to see some savings. And they don't want to see savings. They just don't want to keep dallying as much money. And if you do it properly, there are opportunities. I believe that. Like,
I think Mary Catherine.
Oh, I was just going to say, though, Climate Caucus, when I was on that call with them, businesses have several grants that municipalities are allowed to apply for, and they're not being applied for. And that might be a better fit for the type of grants that volunteers could be following up on and bringing sort of a semi-finished product to staff. Whereas the government grants might be something that the staff is focusing on. Just a thought.
that's good. I heard. And is that something that's published? Here's all the different grants, or you gotta go and look at everything?
Yes.
Yep.
I've only gone to their conference, and then I joined in one of their electeds phone calls is what they called it. But it was at the conference that one of the presenters was saying that they were working with cooperators, and then saying the rest of you should be applying for this because they didn't give away all of the money that they'd allocated. So yes, that's one of the things that members can then utilize is
Yep.
that resource.
Okay, Pat?
No, Mike have.
Through you, Mayor Logo. So kind of for me, just going through the budget and see, you know, 2 of our departments pretty much takes up all our tax dollars, that the grants are very important. So I wonder, is it a 10-hour job a week? Is it a 20-hour job a week? You know, could we hire a part-time person just for that? Probably something we really need to look into.
I think I know the county had one, but that's all.
Yeah, and I can talk to at our next department head meeting. And just put it on the agenda to speak about, but some weeks there's obviously nothing, right? Because the grants don't apply, but if the next week one does apply, well, yeah, it's going to take some time over the next few weeks to then if the next week, then there's another one. So it's up in the air, but I'll speak with department heads and just get a good feeling, and because no concerns have been brought my way that, there's not enough time to do this. I see what's out there and I see what it takes to get these grants done. So I'll make it a point in having a discussion with staff just to see.
And from my understanding too, and this is only what I hear, is in order to be a good person that's filling them out, you have to have an awful lot of knowledge of an awful lot of different things. And then you don't know what words they're looking for, but you can put through a whole bunch of stuff, and if you hit the right word, that's what triggers somebody to take a little bit more of a look at it. But you miss that one word, you don't get that. Even when you might have used the plan, is what I understand. Go ahead, Pat.
Okay. The next item then is the best practices through collaboration with other municipalities, and the CAO may be able to go into that further. So we have joint committees and purchasing and.
Through your, yes, whenever we can, we do shared responsibility, shared services with obviously the upper tier, which is Northumberland County. And we take advantage of that. Sometimes it doesn't really work for us, but we currently have a number of things that we're working with the county. And where the other neighboring townships, we all hop on board. So if we can do it all together, we will do it all together.
And I know through the Clerks Association, things to do with the election, we all work collaboratively together to keep the costs down, so.
Good.
And then the next one is the user fee study, complete Rex. So there was a user fee study done, and I believe it was approved by council in 2020 or 2021. There was one more recently. I think there was 2022. Yeah, 2022 is the most recent one. Anyways, it's a good idea for council to look at your fee schedule, whether it's the fees that we charge for, say, tax certificates, or the fees that we charge for renting buildings. It's a good idea for you to look at that on an annual basis, because times change and sometimes things are more time consuming than what we realize. And not that it should be making money on it, but you also shouldn't be losing money on it as well.
The other thing too is that inflation's gone up 7%. So yes, we have to look at it. And go ahead.
I noticed that other municipalities have taken all their fees and made a fee schedule that's just referenced in the bylaws instead of the fees being built into the bylaws, which helps make it easier to review them annually. Because I may be wrong, but I don't think we have that, a consolidated fee schedule, do we? Yeah, so it might be, I know it's a time consuming thing. I know that because they were using co-op students to do it at Hamilton Township, but.
We at one time had them all over the place, so I was kind of impressed the one that I saw most recently. There's probably 15 or 20 different. But there's an opportunity to answer. I agree.
Okay, and then the last one is the building permit fee study. So the chief building official mentioned it during the budget presentation that he'll be looking at meeting again with the other municipalities to see if we can have a study done that is cost effective with everybody paying their fair share, but it'd be cheaper than us going on our own to do that. So under the Building Code Act, they do need to have a study done in order to review the fees, because they're supposed to break even at the building department, and then anything that's over and above can go into a reserve for future in case the building permits drop off. So that will be undertaken in 2023.
Supposed to be done in 2022 for this.
Yeah,
So, Troy, is it best for you to go after it or Todd, see what the other townships are doing or the other municipalities are doing, so we do get this on board?
so Daryl does meet with the other chief building officials.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure the CEO will remind him to ask them if they're ready to do their studies and get it moving. So,
If you're not, I'll encourage.
Yeah.
Good. Okay. Because it will become, as you bring up a good point, if building does slow down, someone we're gonna have to pay Daryl's wages and not the levy instead of where it should come. Should come, yep.
gotta go into a different.
John? Through you, Mayor Lobo. So this is always something that always, when I see these building permits and stuff, that I think, you know, again, like we talked about before, about being proactive. You know, I'm not saying that the township should be going out and canvassing people to build stuff on their property or get permits and stuff to do it, but if there was ever a way to be proactive at letting the residents know that, hey, you know, you can do this or build that, and this is how easy it can be, and this is the cost of it, and you know, we're wide open to come in and talk to, and let's get things moving, kind of thing, right? But I think it probably not just us, but everybody just kind of sits there and waits for the door to knock, I guess. So I'm just kind of wondering if there was ever a way that we could be proactive at just kind of, you know, giving the residents the information and the letting them know that we're here for them when they.
I think, I don't know, I will let you answer that, but I expect the website does that already, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I do believe it does, but again, great idea. So it's something that we can, or I will, or Daryl will look into, and how to be proactive, what you're mentioning. So it's something we can look into, and we should take a look at our website to make sure it does provide all the information. So I'll take that on.
No, I think, that's all right. Okay, so the next one then is investigate a new municipal building, and so in the previous council, they had wanted to look at a new building. As staff, we thought maybe the first step is to look at the accessibility requirements of this building. And I know that this council chambers is accessible, but not the whole building is accessible. And as a person that sometimes has mobility issues, I can tell you that it's not accessible. And so council did put money in the budget, in the 2023 budget. So I think it's a good idea to move forward on that and then go from there. Because the other thing is sometimes this is a lovely old building, don't get me wrong, but sometimes you need to look at what the costs are going to be to renovate it versus what it would be if you were going to build new. So I think council, before you make your decision, you need to know all the information on that. So.
The minutes aren't here yet from the most recent Heritage meeting, but that issue is going to come up because of the archives, and we have a fabulous new professional archivist who's working with it, and she has mobility issues to get access to it. Having said that, I think this is not necessarily a standalone priority. I think it fits with buildings in general, and that it needs to fit in with, maybe this is a future Grafton Library or whatever it is. But I don't think this is something that stands alone. I think it fits into the discussion of, well, what are we doing with a recreation center over there? Would there be potentially a floor that's dedicated to the building, or sorry, to administration building? Anyway, I don't think, I think this came on to here because the previous mayor dreamed of having a beautiful new facility built as a standalone facility, but I personally, I don't think I would like to see a discussion of a new standalone facility, but I'd be happy to, and I think it's important that we discuss it with the use of other buildings.
And then again, 5.2 is just the grants, and the CEO is committed to send the grant information out to council on a weekly basis. And then the next one was the appraisal of the current township office. So you would only need to get the building appraised if you were going to sell it. You wouldn't need to get it. So that's a future discussion. It's not something that needs to be on the books at the moment. And then again, location options, as Councillor O'Neill mentioned. If council chose to relocate the administration building, then you'd need to, similar to the public works building, you'd need to look at where you'd like to have it located if that was council's decision. And then again, the zoning bylaw amendment, that's only based if we have to, if we move it to some place that's not appropriately zoned, then you would have to look at your zoning and what would be involved in that. So. So the next one is looking at a new well for the Grafton Communal Water System. And as council is aware, there was an RFP that was issued. And so that RFP has come back in. I do have a report on this afternoon's council agenda to hire a company for the engineering services. We were successful in obtaining a grant. The total cost of the project was $1,700,000, and we received both federal and provincial funding. And then location options that will be determined when the engineer goes out on site. And just for council's information, there was a problem with ammonia in the well, so that's why you need to have a new well for backup in case something happens to the well that you're using currently. So that is in progress and should be done by next year. That's all the priorities that were established previously.
Okay.
Okay.
Mike, go ahead.
Well, no, it's great. And, I will say that I did a little homework on looking up strategic plans and stuff, and I made myself a little checklist. And, other than a little more meat in our strategic plan and, all the stuff's there. We just kind of have to, bring more of it out and, and try to put more of an action plan towards it and a follow-up. But the one thing that's not in here is our fire departments. We have 3 of them, and they're a huge part of our budget. And so we need to slot them in one of these here, these graphs, and start keeping an eye on that as far. So that what I would see putting that together.
If I understand you correctly, you're saying that you want to look and make sure they're all fully utilized, is that what you're saying?
Well, I mean, the budget, the equipment, I mean, we're in a vicious circle with the fire department when it comes to money flow. And once you've got some years behind you in the fire department and things start coming to the point where they have to be replaced, it just starts to be a vicious circle. And it's so planning for that and putting the priorities together for that.
Sounds like we're looking at some different stuff. You want to go ahead? No?
Through you, Mayor Logal. I'm just wondering, I maybe should have mentioned this with the health and safety section of this, but where do the volunteers fit in this strategic plan? When we're talking about volunteers coming in, I look at the monitoring the strategic plan on page 19. Where we do mention the volunteers, but I'm just wondering, is this the fit for them here, or where do we monitor the volunteer programs?
Do you have anything else?
No, Mary Catherine had something.
David, Catherine?
I see that there's a number of things that have come up that we do want to incorporate in our new strategic plan. I know we've talked about communication and technology. We've talked about the environment and the impact of changing climate. Obviously, housing is out there. We've talked about senior strategy, the agriculture, economic development, tourism. These are all issues we've already talked about. So I think incorporating them in moving forward. Now, if you could bear with me a minute. So I was involved with the project management for the cathedral, and we went through making a missional plan, which was essentially their strategic plan, and it ties with some of the things that Clerk Kemp started when we introduced, but that process was begun with a survey of the public. It was a very open-ended, a lot of ranking. Where do you rank this as a priority? I saw something similar come out of Hamilton Township, so you know, we can reach over and steal some of their ideas. But also to the staff, I know that it, you know, ultimately it is council and the senior management who are the ones who have to put in the real hard work on this process. But it's got to include all the information from all of the residents, but also all of the staff. It's often your lowest people on the totem pole who are going in and seeing things and seeing ways that it could be improved, but that we need to get those ideas brought forward. Then we went to a brainstorming and a broadly focused, which I think is very similar to the SWOT process here. But it was very interesting because when I think about the questions that we began with and the questions, if we just, you know, apply them to the municipality instead of the parish, you know, what are the biggest draws to this community? And we've talked a little bit about the boats and the boat launches, but that carousel and it becoming on a stamp, a national stamp. Those are the things we have to think about that aren't necessarily run by us, but that's our municipality and that's what's drawing people here. So just going through what those things are, because until we have those leading questions to think about it, we often don't think about it. You know, we know what we know, but we need to include what other people know. And then the SMART. So the focus to the SMART goals, and then finally the budget implications for it. And I don't see in this strategic plan a tie to the budget. To some degree, I think asset management is going to drive some of that. And we've already made a lot of progress on the fire one with the asset management. So yes, we're working in the right direction, but it has to show up, I think, in our strategic plan.
I think stability mentioned in there, and that has an awful lot to do with financial. That type of stuff. We can, as Mike says, we can spend hundreds of millions of dollars on fire, but there's no sense of spending it if we haven't got enough for everything else.
Through your worship, I just want to touch on a couple things. It was my idea not to have all senior managers here, or staff here, other staff. Today, I just wanted council just get it on the table for discussion, so that I totally
Yeah.
agree that I want staff involved with it as much as the public. So I would never want to finalize anything without having public input. So that was my plan today. Just get it on the table, discuss it, get it out to the public, whether it's through a survey or whatever, and then have the rest of the staff take part in a session as well. So that was yeah.
Any comments?
Nope.
Go ahead.
Just rather than forget where I saw it in here, putting up what exists and asking for the public to give comment. I think we want it to be as open-ended at the start and we keep funneling down till we get our focus. Because we want to get as much information brought forward. Also, if we want people to participate, it is via surveys. Even on Let's Talk, the ones that were surveys, we're getting far higher responses to than the ones that are just give us your feedback. So I think it's important, probably need two different surveys, one aimed for the public and one aimed for staff, but
Oh, okay, how are we gonna go, who's gonna handle that? Are you gonna be able to handle that, Troy, going to, make up a,
steal from Hamilton Township. I mean,
You know,
let's steal
and
from
I
other
have that
municipalities.
written down. Let staff
good idea.
come up with something, but I am going to look at Hamilton and other neighboring municipalities.
I hope council agree, but I agree with Mary Catherine. We need to go out to the public and use our bang the table or whatever, and hopefully we'll get some people involved in it. And I think we will, as long as we push it out properly and get them interested. And Mary Catherine's right, that's where you've got to start first, along with the staff and everything else. But I don't think we'd be doing it right if we didn't get them involved. I have wrote down a couple things a little bit more specific. Our properties and our facilities. Are we using them as best we can? And if we aren't using them, should we have them? Because if we're not using them, they're potential tax revenue that we're not making use of. And if we're not making use of some, and I'm talking about the property, maybe more than anything else there, I don't have a good feel. Do we have, well, you're gonna have to tell me that, because I don't know if we have 20 properties that are sitting out there that we could sell, or we have 10 or 15 or.
The
So
surplus,
huh?
surplus you're talking.
Surplus, yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, so we did compile a list of all our surplus properties that we can bring forth to council. We just did that late 2022. So we can bring that. Pat and I took that project on and we mapped it all out. And so we have all that information and I don't know the number, but there is a fair amount of properties that we own.
And I guess, just because we haven't figured out a good use for them, doesn't mean there's somebody who's a lot smarter than me can't figure it, or, yeah, me, can't figure out some good use for them. And if they're sitting there, they're not contributing nothing. Mary Catherine mentioned climate change a couple of times. That's a big project, but it's something we gotta get blending into our thoughts. Working with the farming community, that's gonna be potentially a very good thing, but a challenging thing too, because there are several groups that are in the farming community now. And what we gotta do is somehow tie them together and see what we can do to help them out. I know the county has they have one meeting a month or 2 months with half a dozen farmers, but until we really understand how we can support them and they can support us, and it's got to be a two-way thing. Go ahead.
Through you, Mayor Local, I think you bring up a good point that we could have another committee that is directly involving the agricultural committee or the community and what we would want that committee to look like. And whether it's just having a voice at the table might be more than sending us off to do programs and things like that. But I think it would be a good idea to have a committee where they could have a voice and what we think of agriculture. It would be interesting to see who comes to the table.
Yeah, and I think they tried to do that with 10 years ago, probably with Reagan and Charles Chillington. And they brought in 3 or 4 different farmers that they thought had different interests.
Mhm.
Small farmers, a big farmer, and trying to get them together. It was sometimes challenging because they're all busy and but I think that the thought there is the right thing to do.
Mhm.
And, you know, perhaps you have to do that with tourism too. I don't know, but it probably would be a good thing. The township official plan. That is something that I don't believe is listed, and I think I don't know when the last time we even did one.
We approved doing,
Yeah.
updating it in the budget.
Pardon me?
We approved the updating the budget, so
Yeah, so we need to
it
get,
should be showing.
yeah. Cause I don't even know it anymore. I think it was after, there's a couple of things that come to mind. I think it was anybody that brought property after, 2009 or no, it was maybe 1989 that wanted to sever something off the property. They could only do that if they had more than 20 hectares or something like that. So there's all kinds of rules there, and I just don't understand them all, and I think we should be looking at them, because there's, you know, we want to stay away from agricultural, we want to stay away from prime farming land. But we still need to, and it's difficult to get, the only community that's really has any advantage over the rural community is this one here in Grafton, because we have water. But other than that, as far as advantage to building out in the country versus building out in Rose Deep, there's no real advantages of wrong word for it, but there's no real difference in
Service levels.
service levels, but there's no difference in the requirements. You gotta have an acre or et cetera, and is that feasible, or do we need that big of a property? I'm just asking the question, and why doesn't one person only gets 2 lots and somebody else gets 3 lots and 1 lot? I'm just saying, I don't know, and I think it's worthwhile investigation. And that's what an official plan should give us. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, through you, Mayor Lowe. So I 100% agree with you, because I think we need to pull those bylaws up and look at them. You know, we don't need to change it to 10 severances on one chunk of property, but I think the way it is right now, especially for us as a township trying to move forward and trying to get houses built, that you know, we're kind of getting our hands tied at the same time with some of the bylaws that we got. So very good point.
That's absolutely right. That's the official plan. So if you
Yep.
change the official plan, that's how you start working.
Yeah, I want to go back and comment on your the agricultural group. So in our 100-day list that we want to do, that was part of getting that group together. So I know they're willing to put together an advisory committee with us, and it probably could happen fairly quick if we got the okay to do that. And you know, when I went down to talk with them at their committee there, or their council, their board council there down in Colburn, they thought it was a great idea and thought it was great that the township reached out to them.
Do you need,
So-
the committees, terms of reference?
Well, I think it would be a start, and then maybe get some feelers out there for the committee.
Because if you start with the terms of reference, then people know, but some people may not want to be involved, you never know. But maybe that group has to determine the terms of reference, approved by council or whatever. I don't know
Yeah.
if that's the right idea or not. You're Catherine?
Perhaps we're jumping ahead of ourselves, because would it make sense to call it economic development and tie that in? So that we're balancing and people are listening to one another's, because sometimes some of the STRs and a farm, and I did have a farmer raise this, well, wait a minute, there's an STR across the road, I'm farming. There's a conflict at certain points during the farming season right there. So, I mean, I don't know whether it makes sense or whether there are 2 groups, but they meet occasionally together. But I think, you know, we need to, and that's what the survey would tell us, but I also, back to your point about housing, I think we'd hear as much from people who are worried about protecting the land as we are going to hear from people who want to build. Intensification is something that I heard a lot when I was out campaigning, whether or not that's something that's going to show up in the survey. I think we do need to have, because right now we all have anecdotal things. I talk to so-and-so and they think, but we need to have something more concrete than that, I think, before we get ahead of ourselves.
You're absolutely right. You're going to bring up some controversial things. But until we know what the public want, and what's good for the public should be good for the township.
Well,
So that's-
through you, Mayor Logo, I guess the one thing with the size of lots that usually the placement of the well and septic, that's why they had to be so big, obviously. But down in the hamlet here, not that we'd want a intensification too much, but you know, maybe that is something to look at in the official plan where there is town water. And this would be the only place that it could happen.
And you know something, Joan, you're absolutely right. If you take that, not quite, if you take this lot right next door to us, where there's houses on number 2 and going, where the bench used to live at one time. I mean, there's
Yeah.
4 or 5 houses on
In that
the.
block, yeah.
So. It can be done, and I don't know what, but that's why we.
Yeah, and we wouldn't want,
Planners.
we wouldn't want to have, we'd really have to be careful.
Well,
Yeah, but that they're older
yes.
properties.
And they're using some of the oldest equipment going
Mhm.
as far as sewers and that things.
Through you, Mayor Lobo, just to comment on it again, like, I mean, so. You know, when we have our planning meeting and we look at some of the things that are going on with severances and the property size and stuff, and then, you know, you go back to the one down in Wicklow where the old Bell place was, we made a lot of minor variances there to make that happen. They put in a different septic system, they rearranged the size of their house, we changed property lines and distance and stuff. So, you know, we need to remember that every time we're looking at the lot sizes, because it's we're doing it, so we need to do it every time if we need to.
That was, if I may, that particular property was unique in the classification that it
Mhm.
was, it wasn't like this.
But we have the final say, I think, most times, and we should be making it fair for everybody, and that will help us on our goal. So the avenues are there, so it's good to look back and see what we've done in the past to make things work.
That was a unique, I don't know if we intended any minor variances.
Oh, yeah. It was too close to property behind them, beside them, to the road. House was too big to go on it. The septic tank the lot wasn't big enough to put in a proper septic tank, so they come up with a special one.
Yeah, but that's
Yeah.
all possible.
Absolutely.
No, I guess that's my point.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't think we had, but they're only following the rules.
Yep.
And if you change some of the rules, maybe it's better, you know. I'm not saying it's better or worse, I'm just
Yeah.
saying that's what our plan is to look for. Anybody else? have any-
So can we make a move on the Agricultural Advisory Committee? Can I make a motion that we, you know, put together like say a public notice on our website and see if we can get people to get on it? And maybe send out an email to the agricultural group and say that we want to start this. They would, you know, I mean, they would have to have people strictly off their group. We wouldn't want to make it without them. So it would maybe be a different way of getting it where they could pick, you know, 2 or 3 people and we could put 2 or 3 people with them. When listening to Councillor O'Neill, when it come up to the economic, I think it's a great idea, but maybe there could be points where they could cross over with the agriculture group and the economic committee. But I would sooner see just the agriculture on their own because they are the biggest part of our labor force. And it would probably be you know, better fit if it was just kind of for them and what we could do and what they could do for us as partnerships.
Through you, your worship, I think it's a good idea, but I think we need to take a step backwards is what exactly is the terms of reference of the committee and what are we looking for? You know, what are we looking at this committee doing for us? So instead of asking for names first, and then they're gonna say, well, what's the committee gonna do? What decisions are we making? What are we, well, we don't really know. I think we need to go back to what is it we want from this committee? What, you know, the information in that and whether we tie into other groups in that, and then no different than when we did the STRs and the recreation one and everything. What are the rules? What's the parameters? What are we looking to get out of it? And then we go forward with, because I'm sure you'll get lots of people, Councillor Ainsworth, that'll want to sit on it, but
Mhm.
their first question is going to be, you know, what are we getting out of the meeting? So.
So did you make a motion?
Well, I'd like to make a motion maybe that we put together terms of reference for the agricultural committee. And then move forward with the picking of the people for the committee.
Okay.
Although I did discuss through you, Mayor Logo, although I did discuss it. I think I go along with what Councillor Booth said. We need to have put a little bit of a discussion here at the planning stages of this committee to see if it could include the economic development, because the farms are all is a very important part of it. And it might be a good fit, it might not, but I think we need to really think about this before we get putting out for names.
You're Catholic?
Yes, if I'm looking at it, I think at the SMART goal stage, that's where I'd like to see not just that committee, but other relevant committees come forward. So I prefer Councillor Ainsworth if, while I agree that it's a good objective to get
Yeah.
to, that the timing isn't right. I think it should come as part of our SMART goals when we reach that stage of this process.
I should call, I think I'm gonna, Mike, you made a motion. Can I get a seconder for that?
What was
Well,
the
his
motion?
motion was to,
To put together terms of reference for the agricultural.
I'm not sure you're gonna get a second, but
No,
I'll second it so we can discuss it.
okay.
And we have been discussing it, but I agree with what he wants to do. It's just, I think, and I don't know the process, Pat, maybe you know more about it, is do we look at other communities that have something like that with the farmers and that and tie something together like you're seeing, Deputy Mayor, so that we know this is what we're looking for, right? And then we can search out the proper people, because like you said, Mayor, you probably want some smaller farms, larger farms, people, you know, organic, this, that, whatever it is that's out there, right? So we want to represent everybody.
I think
But I think we need to take a couple of steps back. I know you want to do it right away, but I don't know what the first step is like.
first step is a term to reference.
So then I would agree with that then, and how we start with that, I don't know whether we have a council
Could-
meeting at one of our regular council meetings and we discuss it or whatever, or
I think we gotta come back to our strategic plan. And because we're giving the staff a pretty good list of something that we do. That we'd like to see. Now we gotta bring staff in to see what they'd like to see. And form it together. And Troy and his 30 men or 40 men are gonna be awful busy doing this alone, so we gotta help prioritize it too.
and I think the other concern is too, like Councillor O'Neill said, there's other committees that we've talked about, so maybe it's a separate meeting, or maybe in one of our regular council meetings, we talk about it, because if we're gonna do this with the farmers, then there was the communication when you keep speaking about in that, then we should be looking at what other committees is it that we're looking at, and let's do them sort of all at once and get them going.
I think we got, I think that's it. I don't know, sure, is that on the strategic plan communications?
No, not
Yeah.
yeah, should.
Yeah.
It's going to be.
Well,
I have a feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, and I think we're starting about it already. To be perfectly honest with you, I got you tell Troy that I was at Costco yesterday and somebody come up there and can't get nothing done, I can't get nothing done. I just fill out a complaint before. And they went home and filled it out. A couple hours later, he had it, and that's communication. That is feeding back information from one side or the other and being able to listen.
So could we not put it in the strategic plan then that we're looking at the formation of some new committees or stuff like that, that. And then we can put that down there and whatever committees it is that we decide, whether we're adding 2 or 3 more committees or something for the terms and.
And going along with that economic development, that type of stuff, you know, we have to change the commerce. That probably could be part of that as well. And I don't know, they call, pardon me, they have a monthly meeting. And
There's
I've
something.
been going to that, and I don't know if I should be, or something else. Basically, all they're asking is for, you know, what we're doing in the township and how we're doing the economic development. And that type of thing, so.
Just one quick thing, we're talking about bringing in more volunteers, so I just want to know where that gets talked about, the volunteers. Where, does this come through this program or does it come through another program? I don't know what the answer is to that.
My thought is it's not part of the strategic plan, I don't think, right? We've talked about volunteers and stuff like that. Unless you want to make it something that's in there, we need to get back to the basics with the volunteers of. You know, the committees and stuff like that. Maybe it can be talked about as part of the initiative with new committees and stuff like that.
Okay, I just don't want to, I see where the volunteers would fit through the HR policies and the health and safety through this, so I just don't want them to be, they need to be grounded somewhere.
Should we have a vote? Yeah, we've had a mover to second. Should we take a vote on that first? All in favor of Mike's proposal?
Could you amend it though, that we're adding, it's not you just talking about the farmers, right?
Well, through you, Mayor Logo, so I bring it up because it is on our 100-day list and it is something that we can do, and it is something that we have interest in on both sides.
I didn't catch the last.
Like it's something that we have interest on both sides. So as a council, and we have interest from the farming community that want to do it. If this one here that we could like at least, you know, have staff give us a couple of terms of reference from some other municipality that already have it, that we could look at and move that forward, and that would just kind of, you know, check off another list or a spot on our 100-day list, and then also add all the other committees that we want to talk about, community, the communications one, the economic one, and so on.
And pull out ahead of the strategic plan?
Yeah.
Okay. That's the motion.
And the volunteers.
Very happy.
Sorry, I still think we've had a meeting this morning. The purpose of this meeting was to bring us up to speed on where we are. So I think we've done an excellent job. I feel like we're all on the same page of where we are now, and I feel like this discussion is jumping 2 steps ahead of where we need to go next. I think the next stage is this survey and then the SWOT analysis. And then we're at the SMART goals, and that's where these committees need to come forward, and it will help inform our terms of reference. So here's our goal, and we see this committee as helping us achieve this goal. Listening, I'm thinking, okay, how fast can we move through this process? Because we agree that these are places we want to be. So we don't want this process to drag out all the way. So yes, I support it in principle, but I feel like my preference is that we wait until we're at the stage where we're making SMART goals and bring the committees forward then.
I tend to agree with Mary Catherine. I'd like to get the whole thing
Mhm.
kind of in the ball and then move it along. And I think if we start jumping all over the place, we'll have difficulties. And so I'm gonna call for the vote now, and the vote was to take some steps right away, or pardon me, the motion was.
Mhm.
And see if that's what we want to do. So that's what, the motion was Mike's, all in favor.
Just one more. I guess my only concern with that is that how long is this gonna take? If this is gonna be 6, 8, 9 months, we're gonna be a year into and we don't have a committee or anything done and we're still trying to get things into a ball, you know what I mean? Where I understand what Counselor Ainsworth wants, which is let's just get going. But I think I agree with what you're saying. We do need to take it. I don't know whether we need to do SWOT analysis and all this with forming a committee. I mean, you've talked about communication committee. We
No, I
know.
meant within us doing spot.
Oh, so I mean, if we want a committee, if we're gonna make that committee and what we're gonna do with that committee, then I say we start moving forward with it instead of waiting until this could literally take months or a year.
Oh, I hope not. I hope it's not gonna take a year because we're going down to 3 years.
Well, and that's what I don't want it to get lost in, right? Especially if Counselor Ainsworth's talked with people and there's people of interest in that, then let's get moving on it. But
So if I could just make a suggestion, maybe it would be prudent for us as staff to prepare a report and come back to council and say, here's what we heard at the review, and this is how the time frame that we think it could work in. And then that would give you an idea of whether or not, you know, it's time to move forward with Counselor Ainsworth's resolution, or whether or not you want to wait and go through the other process and do it as part of it.
Sense to me.
Yeah, that would
So
give
is
us
it
the.
reasonable to expect something back from staff by the end of March?
Through your worship, how about we say the first meeting in
First meeting
April?
in April would be,
Yeah, so
Yeah.
basically you're right. Yeah.
And then after that, we're gonna get an idea of how long it will take to put out a survey. And a month to get that back probably, so you're talking probably June that we're starting to get serious. Is that correct?
Yeah, it'd be in that area for sure. Yeah. No, I think that we've started it. It does not sit and go stale. We've started the process. We have to stay on it. As we've said many times, it's an important document. It makes everything easier and staff really need this so we can take advantage of funding.
You're talking?
Just back to the committee you mentioned about Ray, but that farm committee only met during the winter months because the farmers didn't want to do it during the planting and growing and harvesting seasons.
Yeah, and they really don't want to meet every month, I don't think. I could be wrong, but they already have the monthly. And I think it's good that you're participating. Like you are, I think. That's only one group.
Yeah.
Which one is that?
It's the, they meet down in Colburn, like,
Federation of Agriculture?
I think so, yeah. So their bookends from like, say, welcome to Trenton.
Yeah, that'd be the Northumberland Federation.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
They not really get together with the white milk people on there?
pardon me?
Is there milk?
Yes,
Milk producers on
Dairy,
there?
yeah,
Apple
dairy.
producers?
yeah,
Yeah, okay.
yeah, there's quite a few of them. I think they got 750 members.
Okay, and would you include all them people or just Falmouth?
Well, I think if we're doing projects with them, you know, it'd be just nice to offer it and maybe ask the other municipalities that they belong in to work with us as a partner on it. You know, and because I wouldn't want to exclude, like if we were doing like a road safety program, it'd be great to encompass the whole group. Right, and work together with different municipalities on it, say the same thing.
Sure, we would, even if it was.
Yeah. Yeah, but just to reiterate, it's like, so, you know, this is a group that they've never had township come and see them about working together with them. So I would hate to discourage that interest. And even though I'm gonna say that I don't think we're jumping the gun by getting staff to maybe get us a couple of reports on the terms of reference. And I think it would just show that we're moving along and that we're serious about putting it together. And a time thing, like what Councillor Booth says, like, you know, I don't want to look at them 6 months from now and we have done nothing. That they are a big group and they're a big part of our municipality.
Well, just a couple of comments. First of all, Ray did have to try to get that going. And I'm not sure whether those people, I think some of them, yes, they were, some people, and 7 or 8 years ago, I went to the same meetings you're going to. First of all, before the bill. Center, yeah. And I went to, you know, half a dozen meetings in Senator before they moved down to Full. It's not, I think it's great, but it's not, you know, you're not the first one to try to look for.
And again, to your points is that it's even more important that we have an open door here. Let's not throw that away. Because it looks like it's been trying to happen for a few terms and it's never materialized.
Well, I don't know what do they need for?
I believe that they want to be recognized. They want to be able to come here and come to council or come to the committee and make recommendations for them, help the municipality out, let us know what they're doing, you know, the like I say, safety programs and things that we could be educating our residents on when they're going from, you know, farm to field to field, that kind of stuff, and their crops and their animals and basically, you know, helping to feed Northumberland County.
We should find out, you know, Scott,
Mhm.
you should talk to him a little bit, because he's the county rep on that Northumberland Federation of Agriculture group. And he would be able to tell you an awful lot of stuff that they're doing with, because it is the whole group there.
Yeah.
But we could still do it for the township.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it really does have to be the economic development, because it is part of it. It is, you know, different part of making money, but it's tourism has to be considered too.
Yep.
And the residents and the short-term rentals, that you say, and everything else.
Okay.
So, anybody else have any comments?
So
Have a motion on the floor, Mr. Mayor.
could you read the motion back just to make sure it's kind of accurate to what we finished our conversations?
So it was moved by Councillor Ainsworth, seconded by Councillor Booth, that staff draft terms of reference for the agricultural committee with samples from other townships.
All in favor? All opposed?
Well, I hate to add 2 cents in, but I don't want it to be specific to agriculture. Agriculture comes to the table, but other things come to the table as well. That's why I would decline to vote in favor.
Okay, I count it as a tie 2-2. Very happy.
Sorry, I would be opposed because I just think, not that I oppose the idea, I just oppose doing it before it's part of our goals.
And
I want to build into our goals.
I'm exactly the same. Okay, so that was defeated. Anything else to talk? Mary Gatlin?
I just saw lunch brought in. I was of the understanding that I was to bring my own lunch for these meetings and that it wouldn't be something being covered unless it was a special event. You know, earlier or whatever, last week when we were hosting guests, it made sense to bring in lunch, but when it's just a regular work day, I think it's a regular work day and I should bring my lunch, or as Deputy Mayor Stover had pointed out, we could have run down to the lunch that's being provided at St. George's today. So we had options. So that's my 2 cents worth on that.
Well, I think it's a good, I'm glad you brought it up. Staff doesn't know what to do, what not to do, so I'm sure they're trying to think of us. But,
You were afraid we were going to get hangry on you, Pat?
No, I agree that I think just moving forward, if I may, through you, Mayor Local, that if it's a special occasion, then lunch would be provided for us. If not, then we get our brown bag together.
So are you gonna make that motion?
Sure. I made that as a motion.
I'll second it.
And I guess basically it is unless directed by council, that will just, bring it over. How's that?
Perfect.
All in favor? Here. Anything else? No, we're gonna have lunch. Oh, go ahead, Mike.
So I just want to go back to the motion that got defeated. So are we going to just throw this on the back burner? Like if I,
I don't know how far back you're talking, but no, I don't think so.
you know,
I think they're gonna
because if I have any of the group come to me and ask me how things are going, I don't want to say that I got voted down. So I want
You didn't
like-
vote
You
it
didn't,
down.
you didn't get voted down. You got, your
Oh,
proposal
deferred.
got voted
Yeah.
down, but it's certainly part of the strategic plan.
to, okay, so the vision for this would be,
To bring it back as part of the strategic plan, not pre-strategic plan.
And we have if I may, we do have a report coming in from Mr. CAO on this topic as well.
Yeah. So it's not forgotten. It's still on the table. It's just,
April,
Mhm.
first week of April.
And.
Okay.
I guess when can we plan on getting, reasonably, a meeting with staff to go over the strategic plan? And who are we bringing to that?
well, that'll be part of the report in April that we will have the recommendation of dates and stuff. So again, we have the ball rolling. Let's keep it going. It's something I don't want to see sit and forget about it. So we may have some pretty aggressive dates.
You know, something's right. I don't think this council's doing that.
No, I have that feeling too.
I don't think this is done. Very happy.
To Councillor Ainsworth, if I could, Mayor Logal. Two things. One, when you're talking back to them, really encourage them to give feedback on it. We're going to have an opportunity for public feedback. Really encourage them to participate. And if there's immediate things, I would welcome a delegation where we get some information on what they see as some of their immediate needs. And then, you know, looking to the committee in the future.
okay,
And that would probably fit in perfect for the strategic plan.
It probably would help develop it, yeah.
Okay. I don't know if I ever read that motion. 5-1. Did I read it? No, I don't think so. Sorry. Be resolved that the council of the township of Allen will receive the report from the clerk dated March 7th, 2023. And further that the council provide staff with direction on how council would like to proceed.
Based on your discussion, I would suggest it be that staff will report on the timelines for the strategic plan.
And bring to the April meeting.
For the early April meeting. That's good if you could busy.
So is that through your mayor logo, then is that going to be handled in the council meeting the first week of April? Okay.
We'll get that report. Okay, all in favor?
Oh, you need
you
to
move
move
for
for
second. Moved by Councillor Booth and seconded by Councillor O'Neill. All in favor? Carried. Approval of the confirming bylaw. Be resolved with bylaw 25-2023, a bylaw 25-2023. To confirm the proceedings of the special session of council held on Tuesday, March 7th, be read and deemed passed this 7th day of March 2023. Mover and a seconder. Moved by Deputy Mayor Stover and seconded by Councillor O'Neill. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried. Be resolved that the special session of council Tuesday, March 7th, 2023 meeting be adjourned at 11:44. And we don't need to move in a seconder?
You do, because
We
we're
do?
going into this meeting and into a different.
Okay. All in favor?
No, we need to move for a seconder.
Pardon me, move in a seconder, I'm sorry. Moved by Council Ainsworth, seconded by Deputy Mayor Stover. All in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you, everyone. Have a safe day. We'll see you back here at 12:30.